Hello， 大家好，我是利恩，大家今天过得好吗？我们之前一直在讲这个觉醒文化的议题。事实上呢，觉醒文化它其实早就已经从美国已经蔓延到，特别是欧洲多个欧美国家的地方。那特别在英国呢，坦白说英国现在对于觉醒文化的接受度其实跟美国可以说有的比拼等于英国人都越来越接受这些比较极端的包含性别自我主张、自我认同的这些论点。那我今天要来分享一个非常非常有趣的节目。这个节目是主持人皮尔斯摩根 （Piers Morgan） 他本身呢是一个在英国担任过这个 Good Morning Britain 的这个主持人。那他也曾经是美国达人秀和英国达人秀的评委。所以你等一下看到他的面孔的时候，你可能会觉得，好像这个人有几分脸熟。那摩根呢，其实他是属于相对是保守派的或者说狼式文化的。那他很常常去批评觉醒文化这个 woke culture 呢，跟左派的政策，而且他的节目当中也常常表达对川普还有其他保守派领袖的一个支持。那我们今天就是要来看这个摩根特别有趣他邀请到了一位女士呢，是英国一个很有名的记者兼作家 Angelica Molling。那这个女士呢，她在英国是一个提倡觉醒文化的主要的一个很台面上很活跃的人物。那摩根呢，就是要来跟她好好的聊一聊到底女人可不可以随意的从自我的认同来定义。强烈建议这一部影片呢，要不妨抱着一个较为轻松有趣的心态来观赏。那可以呢，暂时停下来，先去拿个爆米花或是以可乐饮料可以轻松的边吃边看。相信呢，一定会对你的一个思辨能力呢，跟以及这个寓教于乐性呢，我想都是有很大程度的这个满足的好，我们就一起看吧 ，Let's go！ 我也要去拿吃的来了好，拜拜。
Well, joining me now is the author and commentator Angelica Mallet, Talk TV's Esther Krakow, and Fox News contributor Tommy Lehran. So, Tommy Lehran, let me start with you. Two people in Britain today who've been at the forefront of not saying what a woman is. One is Nicola Sturgeon, the ex-First Minister of Scotland, who lost her job because of this ridiculous farce of a rapist self-identifying. She tweeted today, proud on International Women's Day to visit my old University of Glasgow, and banged on about women's rights. This is the woman who just literally lost her job for allowing a male rapist into a female prison. And Sir Keir Starmer, who's leader of the opposition Labour Party here, was talking about protections for women in Parliament today, and yet he refuses to say what a woman is. Where are we with this? How has it come that leaders of parties in countries like the UK, and we see a lot of it in America as well, just won't say what a woman is?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize to you because all of this wokeness originates here in the United States of America, and then we export it to you in the UK.
Yes, you're to blame.
So we started this really in America. Yes, we are. You know, the wokeness starts here and then it, of course, moves over, and now you guys have to deal with it. The world has to deal with it. But I say this, I'm proud to celebrate International Women's Day because I know what a woman is. So I would say if you don't know what a woman is, you don't get to celebrate it. You don't get to pretend to be a feminist when it's helpful to you or helpful to your political narrative. You have to be able to define what a woman is. This is all a farce. They are seeking to erase women, and this is the radical rainbow mafia, as I call it. This is not your average LGBT activist. This is the rainbow mafia section of that radical LGBTQ movement that has made women less than, and then has elevated all of this transgenderism and all of this pick your gender, identify as potato. They have hijacked the women's rights movement, the feminist movement, and actual feminists should be really pissed off about it.
Well, as a feminist, I am. I recently interviewed Angelica, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and I asked him this question, which seems to stump many other leaders. Here's the clip. What is a woman? We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Yeah, of course I know what a woman is. An adult human female.
It's not difficult, is it, Angelica? I mean, that is what a woman is.
I mean, I don't know why you're obsessed with defining it. Like, what is a man? Like, why do we need these arbitrary...
A man is a male, adult human. I mean, that's it.
Right. Okay. I don't know that we need
These are just biological facts, but they're just facts. They're not arguable points, are they?
But I think we have a right to self-identify, and you said
as
you
what?
want to.
As what?
If you'd like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue around.
We've literally just seen a male rapist use that scam to get himself put into a female prison where he could attack vulnerable women inside a female prison, when even his ex-wife said it was all a scam.
Which is a terrible, very distressing, isolated incident. And I think it's easy to take that and say that means that no one can identify as a woman. And
But it's not an isolated incident, though.
But it's
42% of trans-identifying prisoners in prison are in there for sex crimes. There's actually an advantage, evidently, to identifying as a female, because they never identify as male, because somehow male prisons seem less appealing to them. It's really weird. Anyway, but
is it limitless, this self-identity?
It's not totally limitless.
What's the limit?
When you're talking about International Women's Day, I don't know why we take the conversation around International Women's Day and make it about this.
But if anyone,
there's so many benefits.
Right, but if anyone, according
to
to you, can identify as a woman, anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with.
Just literally put the hand up and say I'm a woman.
But it's not an easy thing to do, to go out into
Actually,
the world.
It's very easy.
Incredibly easy.
You might think it's easy to say, but to decide to do that, to say
What
this
does
is
doing
who,
it involve?
Whatever that person decides, but to
Does it
go out
involve
into the world and say, I don't identify as perhaps the sex I
So
was
why
born
can't
as.
I
It's not-
identify? Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean, it was.
I'm serious. I'm serious. If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I on International Women's Day say I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian?
I think taking it to a kind of absurd status.
I think
we're
that's
talking
what.
about quite a
with
strong
respect, I think
physical
that
change.
you'd already opened the absurdity door by saying it is limitless. You can do what you like. Anyone can say I'm a woman. So I simply ask you, why can't I?
I mean, this point kind of ridicules trans people to an extent.
Actually, I think what you said ridicules trans people, because actually people who go through the full process of transition, who actually go through what we used to call a sex change, which I don't think you can muck around with original biology, but those who actually go through surgical procedure over a number of years, I've got great respect for that very difficult journey they go on. I have zero respect for people who just wallop their hand up and go, suddenly, I'm a woman and I want all the rights that a woman has and I want to compete, say, in sport. I'm a 6'4" athlete, sprinter, swimmer, whatever, who's competed very mediocrely in male sport. I now want to come in and crush women in swimming pools and in sprinting events and break all their records, perhaps irrevocably, just by saying, I'm a woman. I think that is the absurdity you were talking about. My response was to say, well, if it's limitless, why can't I then say whatever I want to say? And you say immediately, as I knew you would, well, that's ridiculous. But my point is, you were being ridiculous.
Well, that's your opinion. You can think I'm ridiculous, but I don't think you can say, well, it has to...
I don't know why I am, but you're not.
I don't think you have to say it's post-op is the only way that someone's allowed to identify as trans.
The original standard
the
original standard for being transgender was being diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which is a legitimate condition. And now it's being, however way you feel. So if you feel on Tuesday you're a woman and on Thursday you're a pizza, that's perfectly valid. But to you, that's ridiculous. And I want to know why that is ridiculous. We should be talking about actual women on International Women's Day. That's not crazy.
I mean, I agree. I think, but your idea of an actual woman...
chromosomes. It's pretty
It's an adult female. It's not difficult.
The chromosomes are a pretty good indication.
I don't think you have to be biologically female to identify
Then
as a
you
woman.
are wrong, because then I can identify as a fox.
Yeah.
But again, it's
You
a kind
can.
of absurd point.
How many? Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Angelica. How many genders are there?
2.
There are 2 genders.
Oh.
Wow. So you don't believe in transgenders at all?
Well, I think there are...
Whoa, hang on. Whoa. There are 2 genders?
Well, it's taught in...
Well, you say, well, you've literally just launched this huge defence of transgenderism. Now you've eradicated it.
I think
If there are 2 genders, you mean male and female, right?
There's gender fluidity. I will...
Fluid between what?
Between what?
Between different identities, and we can choose different
You
identities.
see how difficult this is, though?
But it is difficult, but I think making...
But it's not difficult until you make it difficult. You see, the BBC has done teaching videos to 11 and 12-year-olds where they say there are 100 genders. One of them was astrogender, which is an affinity with the stars and the galaxy. My response to that on the last show I did was to say, well, in that case, I identify as a 2-spirit penguin. I was then told I was being ridiculous, but I made the same point. The ridiculousness is the BBC teaching kids there are 100 genders. There aren't. It is absurd. Bring back Tommy Lehran, who I imagine is hyperventilating over there in America. Tommy, I mean, look, I don't see why, if it's limitless, I can't just say, I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian. Because that is where limitless self-identity takes us. It means that male rapists can say they're women and get into female prisons. It means I can say I'm a two-spirit penguin or a black lesbian, and why can't I? Because that is where it takes you.
Well, it certainly does, and I think you just had the perfect argument there. It's impossible to define, and it's impossible to stand up for, because it's a mockery of what actual people are. And furthermore, going back to children, when this happens at a young age, when you start trying to convince kids that they don't know what gender they are, or they're born in the wrong body at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that's child abuse. All right? Gender-affirming care wherein you only tell somebody they can be whatever they want to be regardless of their biology at a young age, that is child abuse. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in the US, and this is making room for groomers to groom young people, to confuse the heck out of them, make them not know what they are so that they can take advantage and exploit them. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is not the mainstream LGBTQ movement. There are a lot of conservatives that even support that movement. This is a radical agenda made by groomers, and they don't want you to call them groomers, which is a perfect example of why they are groomers. This is what we're doing, is to confuse young people, to confuse all people, to make them dumber, make them confused as to what they are. It's a mockery of women's rights. It's a mockery of human rights.
Yeah.
And we should no longer be having the discussion.
And you end up with scandals like the Tavistock Clinic here in London, in the UK, where they were basically mutilating children, young, kids, teenagers, mutilating their bodies irrevocably. And then it turned out, after it closed, after a scandalous report came out, that 97% of all the patients had other conditions, from autism to depression to other issues, which may have been affecting their ability to think straight about what they wanted to be. And that was, to me, as a father of 4 kids, utterly horrific. Just horrific. This was going on, and anyone who tried to raise concerns about this, and journalists did, were immediately branded transphobic. And Esther, this comes back to what we see with, people like J.K. Rowling, I'm no friend of J.K. Rowling. She can't stand me, and I don't like her, right? It's like fire and water. But on this issue, I've not seen a word she said that is transphobic. Yeah. I've just heard her go, I want to support and protect women's rights. For that, she's been unbelievably hounded, abused, attempts to cancel, which fortunately have backfired. But it's all wrong, this, isn't it?
The thing is, and one of the shocking things that she's been attacked for is for drawing attention to domestic violence and violence against women. And that's actually the biggest point here. Other than the fact that, that male rapist was allowed to go into a female prison in Scotland, there's a genuine danger around allowing men into women's spaces, like women's shelters and things like that, and they can be there just by identifying as a woman and then identifying as a tree the next day.
Right, so Angelica, do you understand that part of the argument?
I understand that kind of the argument, but I mean, like Tommy said, I don't think this is confusing for children. I think it's giving you freedom of expression and freedom of choice.
But how many girls did you know? Like my wife was a bit of a tomboy when she was young, right? How many kids do you know, young girls in particular, who are tomboys? But if the wrong person gets hold of them and persuades them, actually, what you should start doing is mutilating your body and have a full attempt to become a boy, that's not what most tomboys end up wanting. They end up actually going through puberty, getting older, and then that's it. They become women. Right? But if you get hold of these impressionable young minds too early, when they're just clowning around being tomboys, that's the danger to me.
I don't think the messaging is as extreme as you think it is, and I think we
Tavistock Clinic was pretty extreme.
I think we whip ourselves into a frenzy thinking these things, and this language that you mentioned at the start of the show, I don't think you hear that language used that often in like everyday speech.
Which language?
And I think what you were saying.
Oh no, these are on NHS websites. No, this is where you're wrong. This is actually NHS websites in many cases. They genuinely call women chest feeders, birthing partners. They dare not say anything gender specific to women in case some trans people don't like it. To which I say, where are the rights of women to be called what they want to be called? Why does all language have to be degendered for a tiny minority of people?
I think the problem is there's so much fear around having these kind of conversations and saying the wrong thing, getting it wrong. That means that people can't have conversations that feel kind of progressive about what is gender identity, what does the future look like, how do we create a compassionate space. So I think to your question at the start, like what is women and why politicians wouldn't answer it, they're so scared of getting it wrong. And
well, people are scared because the mob come done for them.
Exactly.
And the mob needs to just go away and shut up. Anyway, I think scrap International Women's Day until we can all agree what a woman is.
No, I'm sorry. I think there's so many benefits to having International Women's Day. It'd be a real shame to do that.
Well, if you had your way, everyone would celebrate it by identifying as a woman, even if they weren't.
Well, being a woman.
Happy International Women's Day. I am a woman. It's a farce. Anyway, Angelica, lovely to see you. Thank you very much. Esther, going to see you a bit later on. Tommy, always good to have you over at the pond. International Women's Day. There you are. A fine example of a genuine woman. Correct?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Identify as a woman. I am a woman. And that's how this thing works, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. Thank you, Tommy Lehrer.
好，不知道大家刚刚看完感觉怎么样？我居然在这个差不多13分钟左右的影片当中呢，我整包Cheetos已经快吃光了。实在太精彩了。好，那我们进入一下我简单的一些讲评的环节吧。一开始主持人提到关于苏格兰的首席部长 Nicola Sturgeon 他下台的一个原因呢，就是因为在2023年1月的时候，有一名自认自己是跨性别女性，而因此呢，从这个男子监狱被转往关押到女子监狱的一名犯人呢 ，Bryson 呢，他在这个女子监狱里头居然强奸了2名女性，那这个就引发大众的舆论的压力那也因此呢 ，Nicola Sturgeon 女士呢，她就不得已就是说宣布说这个 Bryson 呢不会再继续被关押在女子监狱了。她为了这件事情而不得已下台那后面提到的一个是 Keir Starmer Keir Starmer 呢是现任的英国首相。那现任的英国首相呢，这个主持人就炮轰他对女子的定义他是模糊的。那主持人有去访问的是 Keir Starmer 的前任的一个首相 Rishi Sunak。那 Rishi Sunak 呢，他是保守派的，也是前任的英国首相。先给大家科普一下。换句话说你会发现就是说，英国的保守派的这一个前任英国首相呢 Sunak 呢，他对女性的定义就非常的简单明了。那到了工党的这个继任的新首相 Keir Starmer 呢，那他就会说的比较模糊。我们呢之前也做过一期影片大家有兴趣可以去看这里就是讲到了美国加州，因为是民主党执政的州所以加州呢，它早就已经立法通过了法案呢，是允许任何性别都可以在这个被关押服役之前呢，你都可以主张你自己的心理性别认同。换句话说，就是男可以转去女子监狱，那女呢可以转去男子监狱。可是你会发现很有趣的就是事实上呢，几乎非常少是女性犯人，然后她宣称自己是男性心理性别认同呢，而转往去男子监狱的。几乎大部分其实都是男性宣布自己是认为自己是女性，然后呢转往女子监狱，而大部分这里面男性犯人呢，又多半其实都是因为强奸犯而入狱服刑的，所以你就知道根本就不可能是一个合理且公平的服刑的裁定，它完完全全只是满足了男性犯人，显得就是好像是到了另外一个更开心 happy 的地方所以这个现象其实是很严重的，在美国加州。那没有想到在英国也出现了同样的情况。所以这件已经确实蔓延到欧洲了。那后面这边呢，主持人我觉得他讲到一个我自己倒是觉得是一个蛮好的点，就是哪怕虽然说变性人一般来讲呢，经过所谓性别重置手术，或者是用荷尔蒙注射疗法，不论他的外表体征有多么的接近变性，但是呢，我们都知道实质上也不可能是100%一模一样。之前就有一个观众留言就说，变性人动手术也不会真的就是男可以变女，那女可以变男。但是主持人至少表达了一个我觉得还蛮中肯的立场，就是说这样子的变性人，他们也是经过了一个所谓长时间的手术这样的代价而尝试往另外一个性别去改变那你现在都已经变成说，只要你自己心里认同你是女或你是男，那你就是女性或是男性，这个不就变成其实也相对的变成其实是侮辱或者是不尊重这些为了转性而花费代价的变性人吗？变性文化它始终是处于一个 自我矛盾的状况。好，因为觉醒文化呢，说到底啊，它就是一个去掉定义或是去掉所谓常识的这样子的一个过程。当你去掉的越多的时候，你出现的矛盾一定会越多。好，那更不要说我之前也在很多期的节目里头提到，说我非常的认为其实觉醒文化的主张，它反而是消灭了女权主义的事实。有兴趣的去看我左右这2部影片我都有表达过这个看法。那在这一期的节目里呢，主持人皮尔斯摩根他在节目里就清楚的表达说，其实这样子的可以自由转换性别或者说自我认定性别，其实这对女性来讲，或者说对女权来讲，都是一大讽刺，而且甚至可以说是不公平的。我自己跟主持人也一样我基本上是支持女权主义在发展的过程当中，因为我们知道过去确实从人类历史的角度来看女权运动它是推波助澜加速了所谓的两性平等。但是大家要晓得女权运动最早的发源地其实就是英国，而英国这个时候就是因为整个英国深受基督教的加尔文派的一个影响。我们知道英国呢，从伊丽莎白女王她自己本身呢，她接纳了基督新教，也就是基督教之后呢，他自己个人是深受基督教里头马丁路德之后的加尔文派的这样的一个影响的。所以英国不但在伊丽莎白女王一世的时候成为了鼎盛的一个国教时期，更重要的就是基督教里头包含的两性平权观一直都是存在的。因为上帝从一开始的时候就已经清楚的表明，男人要与妻子联合，2人成为一体这个是一个完整的家庭不可或缺的2个部分。也因为着英国的加尔文派促使着英国才推动包含我们讲的威伯福斯。我不知道大家有没有看过《兄弟相爱汉生和》这本书，这本是张文亮老师写的书，非常推荐大家去看是最早废除黑奴解放运动。那另外就是我们讲的妇女有参政投票权其实最早是从妇女投票权开始，也是英国最先开始的。那个时候都是基督教在英国的鼎盛时期。所以呢，你会发现其实人权发展它背后其实早期是离不开基督教背景。那所以到现在呢反而呢自己又把女权呢要给消灭掉了。为什么？因为你已经剥夺了女性她独一无二的特质以及身份。特别我之前也在其他节目提到，包含母亲这样子的一个身份，那你要把它改其为名为生育者。剥夺了母亲的用词。所以也是刚刚后来节目主持人也有提到，就NHS 网站上面呢，这个网站为了怕得罪跨性别者，完全避用母亲，而用的是叫做 third partner， 就是所谓的生育伙伴这样的观念去形容母亲。其实这个都是在消减女性的独特性跟女性有别于男性的独特价值。这个我们已经说过很多次了。所以今天看这个节目呢，不知道大家的感觉如何那我呢都非常欢迎大家踊跃在下方留言，无论你是对这个节目从正面或者是反面的看法，都欢迎你。那如果有人对我刚刚全程过程当中吃零食的吃相觉得难看的话呢，也欢迎你留言，好不好？拜托几个嘞！那完全的就希望让今天大家呢，可以要用轻松的一个方式来一起去探讨觉醒文化的这样子的一个问题。OK， 超级神队友，我们就下期再见，拜拜。